Okay, going for round 3 of this. Let's see if my dogs behave. So I've already done a couple of steps here. Just going to show you. You take your outside fabric, right sides together, and stitch along the top here. Then you take your liner fabric, I always use a different color, and do the same thing, right sides together, stitch along the top. And take your outside fabric, put it right side, turn it out. I use my fingers to press up my seams. Then take my liner and put it over top. Match up the seams. And then stitch along, all the way along the top. I still think this machine is slow, so trim your threads. So you've stitched all along the top here, and then do the same thing on the bottom. Make sure that your seam is lined up. Sometimes your liner will not always match, so I do it as close as possible. I'll trim it off later. So what you're going to do is stitch along your liner, your top fabric. Don't worry about your liner. So stitch it all the way down. Leave the ends open. Of course, I run out of bobbin thread. Or not, it just broke. Of course. Love my machine. Shit happens. So my thread broke and wrapped around the lever. What do we do about without these self-threading machines? I don't know. Okay, so now I'm going to finish. My thread broke, so I'm going to finish stitching that. And trim off all your threads. The trim as you go, it's a lot easier. I'm just going to trim off some of the extra fabric along the bottom here. You can actually see why I love this rotary cutter so much. Next thing I do is, see these don't quite match? I'll trim this off. Makes it a cleaner edge. Flip it right side out. And what I do is I take my finger inside and I just push it along my seam to pop it out. And I turn it so that the fabric, the liner is against, so it makes the pocket. Next you're going to do is top stitch along the top. If you top stitch it, make sure that you keep your liner fabric below the top one. or it just pokes through and looks ugly. I top stitch it as close as I can. The other good thing about top stitching it is if there's a little piece that hasn't caught properly, it'll do it on your top stitching. Okay, trim your thread. So I've top stitched, can't really see it, but anyway, I've top stitched all along here and made a really clean edge. So now I'm going to do it along the bottom. I always make sure that my threads are pushed to the back so it doesn't catch. Okay, so now what you're gonna, now it looks like starting to look like a mask. So what you're gonna do now is turn a little bit in and then stitch along here. Do that. See? So that way when you turn it over, you don't have a rough edge on it. You do it on both sides. I'm covered in thread. So again, turn it over, stitch along here. Corona, knock it off. Gonna kill her. So next thing I'm gonna do is cut my elastic. Usually I have it pre-cut, but I didn't. If you're using the flat stuff, you could still do this, I guess. I cut mine at 9 inches. Mine's really fine elastic that I got off Amazon. I love it. It's really stretchy. And it's really super soft. It's the same stuff that's on the throwaway masks. I tied in a knot to make a loop. Make sure it's really tight so it doesn't slip. And then trim off this little bit. Same thing with the other one. I give it a good yank to make sure it's good and tight before I trim it, or it could fall apart. So what you're going to do is you take your elastic, put that over it. And then fold it over the fabric over top of the elastic so that it's like that. And then you're going to stitch along here. Turbo. Corona is pissing everyone off today. She's about to go in the kennel. So you're going to do the same thing on this side. Elastic over it. Fold your fabric over and stitch. And I promise they're not killing each other. And the mask is done. So when I'm not showing anybody, this actually only takes about 5 minutes to do. They're easy. The way I do the elastic like this is so you have to adjust it. You can pull it and it'll bunch here. And then that way it makes like a more of a seal on your face, because otherwise you're finding that the flat ones were just folding and leaving a big gap here. These ones don't leave a gap.